Hello everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the webinar today. I am Rahul from the business development team of Synergita. As Manali said, today's webinar will be based on how to create and manage the feedback cycle. First, what is a feedback cycle in Synergita? Feedback cycle is a process for a goal setting or appraisal cycle in an organization. In other products, they might name this as a review cycle, performance cycle, or an appraisal cycle. In Synergita, we call this as a feedback cycle. Feedback cycle can be initiated by the HR of the organization by performing a set of simple and easy steps. A feedback cycle can be created to run a goal setting process or to conduct a survey or to run an appraisal cycle. In this webinar, we will have a detailed explanation of how to create a feedback cycle. At the end of this webinar, we will be able to create and manage a feedback cycle effectively. Before creating a feedback cycle, there are some prerequisites that must be updated before creating. The employee data must be kept up to date in the system. The employees must have a primary manager assigned. Else, during confirmation of the feedback cycle, the system will throw an error. So ensure that the primary manager details are updated for every employee who is going to be a part of the feedback cycle that you're going to create. Feedback form or template must be available for all the employees who are added to the feedback cycle. Similarly, department head and HR business partners and other reporting hierarchy must be defined for employees before creating the feedback cycle. The employees to be covered in the feedback cycle must not be a part of any other ongoing feedback cycle. One employee can be in one open cycle. These are some of the prerequisites to be checked before creating a feedback cycle. So coming how to create a feedback cycle. The following steps must be performed. In the HR administration page, click on the Manage Feedback Cycles icon. This will navigate you to the Manage Feedback Cycle page. The Manage Feedback Cycle page will be as shown in the screen. This page will display the list of feedback cycles that are already created. You can use the start and end date range picker to filter out the feedback cycle list. You can also choose an option to view only the open cycles that are available by checking the Show Open Cycles checkbox. To create a new feedback cycle, click on the Add button on the right-hand side of the page. So clicking on the Add button will land you to a wizard structure with 4 simple easy steps. The first step is to enter the basic cycle details. The Cycle Details tab consists of the following mandatory fields to be entered. First is the cycle name field. In the cycle name field, provide a valid and a meaningful name for the feedback cycle that you're going to create. This is used for reference purposes only. For example, in the reports, you have an option to choose the feedback cycle based on the name and load the data. Similarly, there are areas where this feedback cycle name will be referred. Hence, provide a valid cycle name in the cycle name field. Next is the template field. You have to choose a template for the feedback cycle that you're going to create. If you're planning to run an appraisal cycle, then choose the performance appraisal plan template from the drop-down. The implementation team would have provided the template to be chosen. Next is the description field. Provide a brief description about the feedback cycle to be created. This is used purely for reference purpose only. Next is the cycle date field. Provide the duration for the feedback cycle in the start and end date field. Only after the start date, the feedback process will be started. Next is the review group field. Review group contains the relationship who can provide the feedback for the employees who are part of the feedback cycle. You have to choose the correct review group for the feedback cycle. So review groups will be created during implementation. In the review period for assessment field, it is nothing but the time period the performance of employees are assessed or the goals that are set for. Workflow is a process with multiple steps. The workflow for the feedback cycle can be selected from the drop-down. If you want to start an appraisal process, then annual appraisal workflow can be selected. This is an example. If you want to run a goal setting process, then the goal setting workflow can be selected. Workflow is configured by the implementation team based on the needs of the customer. Next is the qualitative feedback checkbox field. Selecting this checkbox will allow the raters to provide comments only. The raters cannot provide a rating during the feedback. If this checkbox is not selected, then the raters can provide ratings and comments when giving feedback. The important point to be noted here is all the details entered in this page cannot be changed or updated once a cycle is initiated. So please ensure that the details entered here are correct. After entering all the mandatory fields, click on the Save and Continue button to navigate to the next step in the feedback cycle creation process. Next step is the Add Employee step. You can use the various filters that are available to choose the employees to be added in the feedback cycle. You can enter the employee name in the employee name field, or you could use the employee directory pop-up to choose the employees to be added to the feedback cycle. You can also use the organization unit filter, location filter, employee status filter, employee type, and other filters that are here to filter the data. For example, if you choose a location, for example, say Chennai, the employees who are covered in the Chennai region alone will be selected, and you can add them to the list. So once you select a filter, clicking on Add to List will add all the employees to the employee list section below. Once you add an employee to the employee list, you have an option to remove the employees from the employee list. So once you click on the remove button, those employees who have removed will be in the removed list here. You can also import the employee data through an Excel format. So clicking on the import from Excel will allow you to upload an Excel document with the employees list who want to be a part of the feedback cycle. So clicking on save and continue will move to the next step, that is the schedule step. In this step, you can schedule reminder and notification here. You can choose a fixed date on which the reminder must be sent, or you can also provide a duration, that is example for 5 days from the cycle start date, etc. For each activity in the workflow, you can configure the reminder and set it here. The last step is the confirmation step. You can find the details like what is the total number of employees covered in the cycle, total number of employees who are yet to confirm, and employees who have already confirmed will be displayed here. The start and end date will also be displayed for reference purpose. During initially when you are creating a feedback cycle, this total number of employees yet to confirm will be the number of employees who are added to the employee list. So once you click on the confirm button here, you will get a success message that you have confirmed the feedback cycle, and the total number of employees who are in the yet to confirm status will be moved to total number of employees confirmed status. So these are the major steps that you have to follow while creating a feedback cycle. So once you hit the confirm button, and when the start, if you have given a start date in the next week, the feedback cycle will be started on the prescribed start date. And we have one more option, like you can add or remove employees in the feedback cycle. This will be useful if a new joiner has joined the organization and must be added to the feedback cycle. To add employees to the ongoing feedback cycle, then the following steps must be performed. Navigate to the manager feedback cycle page and click on the edit icon. Clicking on the edit icon will open the wizard page again with all the data preloaded for the feedback cycle created. Navigate to the employee list tab and you can add the employees in the employee list tab. The employees who are added here will be added to the ongoing feedback cycle. Next is how to extend or pre-close a feedback cycle. You can also pre-close or extend the feedback cycle duration by going to the cycle details page, and you can change the cycle date and start date and end date. If you want to extend ongoing feedback cycle, you can key in a future date from in the to value date. So based on the date entered, the cycle date will be extended till the date you have entered in this field. The changes will reflect immediately once you change the date prior or to a future date. So these are some of the steps that must be handled in order to create and manage a feedback cycle. By following these 4 steps, a feedback cycle can be created and started easily by the HR of the organization. So if there are any queries, I am happy to answer here. If there are any queries, I can answer you if you can chat with me here. Okay. Okay, if you have any queries regarding the presentation, you can always reach out to us at support.synergita.com, and we will be sharing this PPT to you. Our customer success manager will share the PPT to you. So thank you all for joining.